Today we will be discussing preferences and settings in Scribus. Time spent on preferences and settings very useful because this is where you do all the customizations pertaining to Scribus. This is actually the layout window which opens as soon as you double click Scribus. Go to file. There are two things which we are going to do. One is the document setup, the other one is the preference. The document setup pertains to settings which you like to enforce to the current document, whereas preferences, the settings in the preference which you allow, takes a prospective effect. It applies to all future documents prepared using Scribus. The majority of the settings you give out under these preferences are not going to be applied to the current open document. It will only be applied to all future documents. So now we will go to document setup. Here under this document setup, the first thing is, as I already been stressing, document setup applies to the current open document. The general, under general, you get to set the page size. It happens to be A4 or whichever size you prefer. You can even customize the page size. And then orientation, you can give out a portrait or a landscape. Then units, again you can give it out in points or millimeters, inches, whichever unit you prefer. But as I've been telling repeatedly, printer likes to measure the units and the points, so it will be easy for you to communicate with the printer if you use a jargon which he is familiar with. And then width and height, the moment you choose A4, the default width and height are set. If you want to change this, you need to go to custom. If you go to custom, you will be able to change this. If you are going to stick with the A4, this is the default width and height for the page size. Now here you have the option of applying this setting to all the master pages or all the pages. So creation of master pages is another topic which we will cover subsequent session. Now here, if you want to apply changes to all the pages, you just give out check mark. And then if you want to apply changes to all the master pages correspondingly, then give out a check mark here. Just briefly I will describe what exactly you mean by master page, just to keep the things moving. The master page is actually a page you create by placing text boxes and images, and you roughly use it as a template to set up your pages. So you can have a title master page, you can have an image master page, you can have a fresh chapter master page. These master pages can be saved in your Scribus, and the same master page can be called to any layout. So if you want to create a excellent looking document which will look best in print or when viewed by web, you have to customize the creation of master page. So this master page renders uniformity for the entire document, entire pages which have been included in the document. The next tab you're going to see is the layout tab. So here, if you want to choose single page, it will show you only a single page. If you are going to show a facing page, it will open up two pages, and the first page happens, you can choose the left or right page. Invariably the facing page will be a right page if you are going to prepare a book. If you are going to prepare a book, it's going to be a right page. And you want a page layout, either if you want to view the entire thing page by page, or you want to simulate it facing as if you open a book. So it will be simulating the open book by checking the facing pages mark. Moment you check the facing page mark, you get the option of choosing which page you want to be the first page. So invariably it has got to be the right page in all books. So this is how it works. Let me show you exactly how this facing pages setting. For example, here page, I will insert it since we are having a document with only one page. So now I'm going to insert pages, 3 pages at the end. Go over here. You see what happens. You get these pages get to the first page happens to be a right page. Other pages are get to shown as pages. This is what exactly we mean by that setting. Here, layout, right page, and it is displayed as facing pages. This is how it looks. Now, margins and pleats. So usually, rule of thumb for the white space. This is actually the white space. Left, right, top and bottom. This is the top. Here, bottom. There is white space at the top, white space to the right. So this space can be set from the margins and bleed. So what happens is you have the choice of having a uniform white space on all sides. That is 40 points. So if you feel that you want more white space on the inside, okay, what you do is you just change this. It will get changed. And then if you just see this link, if the link is away, unlinked, all these boxes are unlinked right now, you can change the value each box independently. Whereas if you link this box by clicking here, the moment you start changing one box, correspondingly the other boxes also change. So if I give out 40, all other boxes also change. I will unlink the, and then again you have the option of applying changes to all the pages, or you can even apply changes to all master pages. And then bleed is actually the white space you leave on all sides of the document to facilitate the flow of ink printer. So usually you give out a 3-point. So I will link it. Say I'm going to give a 3-point bleeder. Then saving and undo. So here you have an option of saving the entire document in a compressed format, because if you have space constraints in a system, you want to save it in a compressed format without losing any data. You can choose the saving compressed format. And then there is also a box which asks you whether automatic saving of the document should be enabled. So I will strongly advise you to check this box, because this automatic saving of the work you do will save you a lot of trouble if your computer crashes. So it will, with you when you're working, you may forget to click the save button manually. So you enable automatic saving the documents. The moment you enable it, you will be thrown out two boxes. Two boxes will be enabled. One is the interval, the number of minutes you want to every time you want to save the page. So you want to save the page every 5 minutes, you give it 5 minutes. If you want to save the page every 10 minutes, you give it 10 minutes. You can even reduce the number. If you're doing a feverishly fast work, you can reduce the time interval for saving. If you keep on reducing it, the saving process also will match the pace of your work. So ideally speaking, your saving should match the pace of your work. So if you are feverish, if you are really in a hurry, you ensure that this interval is also correspondingly reduced. And number of files to keep. Here the saved files literally will be overwritten every time the software auto saves. The old version of the file will be overwritten. Supposing you want to keep the older version also, so that you may compare the changes. So you can choose here the number of files to keep, so number of versions of files to keep, and then again there is another option to save in the same directory as the document. So for example, the auto save per se gets saved in a separate folder which is default, and the default happens to be the same directory where you're already saving your work. That will be ideal. Or if you feel that you want the Scribus to save the document in some other place, you can get save into change, and you can give out a new folder. You can choose out a new directory and you can give out a new folder. And then I will prefer to save into the same directory as the document. Then here, keep backup files after closing the document. You enable this, so all the backup files will be backed up while the document is closed. But what happens is this will increase the closing time. The time taken for Scribus to close itself, the time will increase. So if you feel that you are working on a document with a number of images and tables, better to check this box. And then here show auto save countdown clock on the canvas. So what happens is if you click this, there will be a small countdown displayed in your canvas which says how many seconds or how many minutes or more for the next auto save to take place. This is a useful feature because when you are completed the work, you won't know whether the work has been saved or not. But the thing is, you will even give out a shutdown before the Scribus has actually managed to autosave the document. Whereas if you click this autosave countdown clock in the canvas, there will be a small counter displayed on the canvas telling you how many seconds or how many minutes more left for the autosave function to check or taken. So what you do, if there are some more time left, you can manually override the autosave button and you can go and save the document manually and close the computer. And then enable and redo and undo and redo system. This is a vital thing because you would have done something, you may not like the effect, so you should be allowed to undo and redo. As you do in your Word document, you can always click the undo button, do the redo button. Here you take care of this length of the history. There are 99 undos, means your system has got to remember 99 changes you have made. So the 99 times you can undo or redo. If you want to increase this one, you ensure that your system has adequate memory. I make a caution: if the system doesn't have adequate memory, don't give it a larger number here. So make it 3 or 4 or 5, and if you give a 0, mind you, it is infinite. Again, if you give, I'll caution you, there should be some number here. To give out a 0, what happens is the number of enable, undo and redo, undo and redo becomes infinite and will take a huge toll on your system's resources. So you don't forget to give a OK after you set the document setup. Then guides is actually a grid which you see here, and then guides here you can give out the distance and what exactly you mean by the grab radius. So what example, if you have an image, you just select the image. As soon as you select the image, you can reposition, you can reorient the image. So in order to do all this, there should be some handle. So that handle radius is which you can fix here. So that is 4 points. Then content objects, baseline margins and grids, all these things can be given, and the major grid line spacing is 100 points, minor grid line is 20 points. And so here these are the default grid distances. Grid distance is nothing but small squares will be shown on the document. So that squares will help you to position your images and text accurately. And then let us go to the visibility. Supposing you have checked your guides and margins. Here the blue line is visible and the guide is a red line, that is again visible. Then page grid and baseline grid. If you choose this, and you can make it crosses and dots or lines. So let me do it lines. See what happens. So here it becomes something like a graph paper. It gives you an accurate idea of where exactly your letters and images are going to be placed inside the document. Supposing you feel it's too cluttered, you can always go ahead and choose visibility, and then just take out this page, just allow the baseline grid alone to be in place. See what happens, it becomes a ruled notebook. This ruled idea of ruled notebook is you can accurately place the font on the line, horizontal line. It is as if you are writing on a ruled notebook. This helps you to allow your letters to be on a straight line. It cannot be going out of the line. And this is again real helpful feature. So now this is the visibility. Then going to the color. So here you can change the color of these guides. Margins color can be changed. Here margin is, guide is dark blue, margin is light blue and dark blue. Major grid is green. And I could change the baseline grid happens to be green color. You can change this color of the line. So this again will help you to more orient yourself to the document. And here again you need to spend some time with the document information. Your title of your work goes here, the author title goes here, subject of your book goes here, and spend some time with the keywords. You break down your entire book to different keywords. The larger the number of keywords, better will be the search results in Google. So all the search engines will pick up your document only by going by the keywords. So write a good description of your book. Don't forget to add a few lines on what type of audience your book is targeted. Also form the accepted international norms while describing your target audience. Don't forget to mention the language in this book is written. There is something called further information. Here you can prefer to give out the name of the publisher. Then here you can acknowledge the persons who have contributed actively while writing this book. Then you can give out the date on which you are publishing it, the type of the document, the format of the document. Identifier is nothing but your ISBN number. So before authoring a book, you should have applied the title to the local ISBN number issuing authority, and you give out the number here. Then if you have any sources you want to acknowledge inside the book which has inspired you to author this book, you do the same here. Then don't forget to write down the language. Then coverage, you choose international, or that is your choice. Invariably you choose the international language. Relation is the subject in which you want to relate your book to. Coverage is again I have told you. Rights, you choose all rights reserved or a Creative Commons license. You can go to a Creative Commons site and choose whichever license that is appropriate for you. So you can paste the same here. Then comes to section. Here this section is actually given as a facility to add page numbers. So for example, here you need a section. Here section name, you can give it a name. You can say page numbers like that. So you can give it here and change the numbering pattern also. You can put a Roman number. So all these things can be done with a section. So already one default section will be set, and that happens to be in the Roman number style, and that is it. Then item tool. Here item tools is rather important. This you spend some time with this tool, because here you configure your text, your fill color, line color, all these things will be given here. Supposing you choose a text, you choose a font. So you choose a font. Then as soon as you choose a font, it will be previewed here. You choose ideal font size, and then size, well, type of font you choose, color of the font you choose. If you are going to give out a stroke for the point, you use this. Then you choose the shading, appropriate shading you want, and then let's go to image settings. Here image settings, again you can use a fill color and use a box line color. Then prescaling is when you want to scale the image, it really maintains the 100%. Suppose you want to disengage this link, so you can ensure that horizontal scaling is 50, vertical scaling is 100. So the scaling can be done, adjusted here. And if you choose the scale image to frame size, all the images will be scaled down to fit into the image frame you have created. And then when you are doing a preview of your work, you can choose to preview the entire work either in full screen or full resolution, normal resolution, or low resolution. If you choose low resolution, the document will open real fast. If you choose full resolution, the document may take some time depending on your system RAM. Again, these fill colors, shading, this is actually for the image box or the image frame which you are going to create, where you are going to place the images inside. And then shapes means there will be, you use various shapes inside a document. If you use a circle or that, so you can use it, you can use give a color for it, you can give out a line color for it. Then you can even choose the style of the line, and the line of the width also you can correct using these item tones. But here you need not set it for your entire document. You can also individually choose preferences for each image and set it accordingly, and that menu will open when you right click on the uh, image box or a text box you want to edit. But if you do this here, it will override your entire document. So regular polygons, you can choose polygon with so many corners. So if you draw a polygon, if you say I'm going to have a 5 corner, it will be a default 5 corner, and then you can apply factors or rotation. These things you can predetermine if you are going to do a document which is predictable, and which have done all the layout before. You can choose it and do the setting here itself, so that it will save you a lot of time. You cannot, if you want to draw a polygon, if you ensure that you're going to draw only a 5 corner polygon, you choose 5 and go away with it. You need not come here to change the corners. Then lines, the line color can be default black, that is ideal. And then line style, you can have a dotted line, hashed line. Then width of the line you can change. Then if you're going to use an arrow, you say there's going to be a start arrow, and that start arrow is going to be this type. So you can choose the arrow. End arrow, if you want, you can choose a end arrow. But let me also tell you, these settings also will open up when you right click on the image. As properties, you can set these things as individual properties for each image. Then there is something called calligraphy. You can just draw beautifully using this calligraph pen. So that calligraph pen will also be shown in your toolbar. So you can write cursive letters. All these things can be done using a calligraph pen. The calligraphic pen, you can use a color, various colors. The line color you can choose, line style you can choose, and the line width you can. All these things can be done here. Or if you go to the toolbox here, the toolbar menu, the calligraphic pen will be shown. Here this is actually the calligraphic pen, and that calligraphic pen, when you choose, it will bring out all these settings. Then arc, suppose you want to draw arc, so you can give out a start angle, you can give out end angle. All these things you can predefine, provided you plan your document better. you are not planning a document, it is very difficult to pre-plan the entire document you are going to get ready. So I will prefer to draw the arc as per the requirement of the document and not to enforce uniform setting. So I won't enforce uniform settings as far as arc and spirals are concerned. And let's come to fonts. Here this gives you all the fonts which can be used in Scribus. If you want to add fonts, various fonts added, you get a font and you want to add it to our Scribus, you need to install it in the first place to Windows, and then you can, it gets shown here, and then it gets shown here where exactly the location of the fonts, and then it gives the path of the font file. So there is something called rejected fonts. Sometimes what happens is these fonts may not be compatible with your Scribus. It tells you what are the types of fonts that is rejected. Then typography. Here you can, if you want to add subscript to your text, you can do n number of adjustments. The displacement of the subscript away from your main text in terms of percentage. Then in terms of scaling, you can make it slightly larger or slightly smaller. You can displace it slightly wider or bring it closer to the main letter. The same thing with superscript. So you can keep playing with it, and according to the requirement of your document, according to how good it looks with this subscript and superscript, you need to try out all these values and decide which subscript or superscript suits your taste. Then underline. Underline is drawing a line under a word as a emphasizing feature. So here, if you want to, here auto is, it will give out underline at the preset value below the typed letter. So that will be decided by default within the software. But you can manually give out a displacement value. So you can make the line go still lower down or slightly bring it up according to suit your taste and visibility. And then line width, the width of the line again can be. And there's some similarly with the strikeout. So if you want to use strikeout, what happens is again the same auto value will help you to set the strikeout line, but you can adjust the displacement, you can adjust the line width. You try playing around with these two settings, then you will know which one looks better in your document. Then there is something called small capitals. So if you want in certain areas of the documents, you need to use small capital letters. The rule of the thumb is the small capital need to be 75% of the size of the normal capital. So in some instances of your page, you can use a small caps, and that small caps scaling can be starting from 75. You can give out any scaling you want. And then automatic line spacing is the space between both lines. So automatic line spacing is around 100%. It is given out in percentage. If you want to choose some other value, you are welcome, depending on the document requirement. Next comes a hyphenator. Hyphenator is something you draw a hyphen to indicate that these two words are together, even though these two words are split and the other word due to space constraint has got to move down. You just put a hyphen. And here, if you click hyphenate text automatically during typing, the software does the job for you. If you check hyphenation suggestion, it will give you a suggestion that can you hyphenate like this? Is it good for you? Or do you agree? If you agree, you can choose. So the choice is yours. Then word list, you can always give out for hyphenation certain things you want to ignore. You can give out word list, or you can ignore list. So this you can predetermine with the software. Then comes a color management. So here you should activate the color management first, and then you can even simulate the printer on the screen, then convert all colors to suited type of printer. So, and then mark colors after. You can do a lot of things. Here you can choose RGB account, RGB, there is so much standard as far as RGB. You can choose whichever standard your printer wants. So before you do mess up with this color management, I would like you to spend some time with your printer. If you are going to publish in Amazon, automatically they will give out their requirement. To ensure that you go through the requirement carefully and choose the document profile. So invariably this default document profile will be fine for them. And then document rendering intent. So supposing you are keeping an active image inside the document, the rendering is the way in which the image is shown to you. So the image will be perceived as you want it to be seen. So that is how perceptual image. You can use relative colorimetry. You can change the colors in relative shades. Absolute colorimetry, that again you can change, but perceptual is a nice thing to do. And then display space, you will show rulers. So rulers relative to the frame. This is actually the document setup. So you can show images. All these things you can decide. Bleed area, if you check, it's shown the bleed area. The bleed area is a white space between the red line and the end of the document page. So here the end of the page setup is here. The red line is here, and this white space is the bleed area. We have set it to 3.3 millimeters. Then there is something called scratch space. This is the scratch space on either side of the. So here this is a scratch space. This is a scratch space. You can change the scratch space. You can increase the scratch space. So when you want this, where do you want to use the scratch space for? Here you can store the images. You can drag and drop. Keep the images here in your scratch space. Drag and drop. Keep the text box, your notepad here. Type document. You can copy and paste here. So it's actually a holding place for the documents from which you are working on the ebook or a printed book. So this scratch space is vital. You can decide the dimension of the scratch space rather. Then there is something called gap between pages. So usually there is a vertical gap between pages. So these pages, when you scroll down, this is actually the gap. The first page and the second page, there is a gap here, that is 40 points. So this gap should be maintained. So you give out your requirement as per your choice and comfort. But this is not going to matter as far as your printed version of book is concerned. Here you can give out a page fill. The color of the page you can choose, and it will be displayed here. Document will take a green color. So why you are going to use this page fill is, when you use a page fill, this is just to tell you that I'll change the default to it. It will tell you how your page will look like when the printer decides to use a colored paper. So if you want a book to be printed in a colored paper, green or red or yellow, this will give you a first-hand idea how your final product of your book is going to look like when printed on a color paper. But when you are going to print in white paper, this green color will not be printed. I repeat again, this green color is not going to be printed when you print on a white paper. Again, you can add color to the page border, color to the frame. All these things can be done. The prospects are really enormous. Then operator tools, where you can zoom, minimum zoom, maximum zoom, stepping zone. So every time you scroll, increases zoom level, it increases by 25%. Here, if I'm showing a cursor on minimizing. If I minimize my document is minimized to 75%. The next is a small dot. When I click it, the document becomes 100%. So every time you click this plus button, it steps the value, magnification value, by 25%. So you can increase this value by clicking repeatedly at the plus button. Then miscellaneous, again here rotation tool, duplication tool, here the X displacement, these things I will advise you not to set at the level of the document. I will require you to do the corrections by right clicking on the image box. Now flight verifier. This is actually after you have completed working on the document. You should use this pre-flight verifier to verify whether there are any errors, print errors that are likely to occur when you send out the document for printing. So that again you need to be really pre-flight check should be done. Verification should be done before you send the document to the printer. And here, if you are going to give out a book as PDF, you ensure that which version of PDF you are going to choose. If it is going to be active PDF, you choose active PDF X4. If it is going to use PDF, just choose 1.4 or 1.5. So that is actually the output profile. If you give ignore all errors, ignore all errors and say pre-flight check is okay. And then again, you need to spend some time here. Minimum resolution, maximum resolution of the images. The print image will look very bad if you give out a picture of resolution of less than 250 dpi. Here we have set the minimum resolution as 144. If you want to do a printing work on your document, to ensure that you have an image size of minimum 250 or 300 dpi. So the minimum resolution you should set between 250 and 300. If you don't do that, your picture on print will look pathetic. So here you take care of the picture resolution, and then check for place PDF files, check for GIF images. All these things are defaultly checked. Then here ignore non-printable layers. Supposing if you give out on ignore non-printable layers, it will ignore non-printable layers. But ideally, non-printable layers also should be checked because it will mess up your final result. The next comes a printer. So actually, here you need to choose the configuration of the printer. This is actually the printers which are connected to my system, so it gives us the list. Ideally speaking, you should communicate with the printer on what type of printer is having, so that these settings can be applied, and this unique printing setup will take over the default setting of Scribus. So this is where your interaction with the printer becomes crucial. Then PDF export, you can choose the option of exporting all pages inside the PDF document and sending it across. And then if you want to give out a small preview of your book, you can select a few pages or a few chapters as per the numbers of your page, and then you can export it as PDF and send it across as a promotional material, so that reader, prospective reader will go through all this, will find out whether it is useful or not, and buy the book if he wants it. Yeah, next is into file option. The compatibility, the lower you go, better is the result, because you can't predict what version of Acrobat Reader your user is going to have. So to choose a compatibility to as low version of the Acrobat as possible. Then page binding, invariably you choose the left margin, because the book is always be bound the left margin. Then you can prefer to clip to printer margins. Printer margin be used to clip the document. Then if you check the generate thumbnail, this will become a useful feature when you distribute a document as PDF format. So your page will be displayed as thumbnail. Then you can save linked text frames as PDF articles. If you have linked some text frames within your book and that document is stored in the same page, you can choose the option of saving the text linked to the frame as PDF articles. And then if you are creating bookmarks, which I will advise you in your future sessions, I will be taking you down to the course how to create bookmarks. I will check this box also, and then this is actually experimental feature. I won't try to play around with it because this is going to be a real serious business. And then text and vector graphics can be compressed to reduce the size of the file. So the compression should be a lossless compression. The data should not be lost in the process of compression and decompression. So you choose the automatic compression for images, and the compression quality you can choose, make it to maximum so that it becomes more portable. And then here you can limit the image resolution to 300 dpi. If you are going to limit it to 300 dpi, what happens is a file size will be reduced. Supposing you are giving out lot of high resolution images, as in the case of Atlas, which contains a number of pages, you don't want to compromise on the quality of images, you can increase this image resolution so that all these images will be showing up on the same resolution you have placed inside the document. So in Atlas, if you want to create an Atlas, always ensure that you increase the image resolution to the max. Then security is again a useful feature which you should know. One is, if you want to use for encryption, you tend to password protect your file. Supposing if you give out a password protection for owner alone by checking this box, owner alone can edit. So what happens is, if you send the document to XY or Z, the XY or Z will be viewing the document in a view only mode. They won't be able to edit your document unless and until they give out the owner password. Supposing you want to assign a password for the user also to view, so you want to ensure that the user should have a password before he is able to open the document. You can give out a user password. If you give out a user password, the user will be able to open the document only after keying in the password you provide to the user. But kindly ensure that you provide the user password to the user when you send the document. Otherwise, the document will be rendered useless. The user won't be able to view the document. But regarding the owner password, I will ensure that you choose a owner password which enables or disables your editing. If you don't choose any password, your PDF can be edited by anyone. You remember that. If you really want to limit editing rights, you ensure that you set the owner password. Then color. Then here you can have a choice you make. You want to tell the software this output is intended for web viewing. If you choose this one, it will be optimized for web viewing. Then if you say I'm going to print, here this what will happen is it will configure your document to suit a printer. And then grayscale, you want it in black and white, you put grayscale. The screen or web is commonly used in PDF. You can choose the choice. If you are going to use again color profile, that will happen only when you choose the printer. So here when you choose the printer, you need to go to the printer and give out all the color profile. Then pre-press. So pre-press is where you give out all the settings which the printer has offered you. Printer will say these are the settings my printer needs. So my printer needs crop marks, my printer needs bleed marks, my printer needs color bars. So this actually pre-press settings given out by the printer. So he will tell you exactly how much of bleed settings you need, how much offset you need to give. So these things you need to coordinate with the printer before deciding on the settings. Then attributes of the document. This document item attributes will be a separate session, because this is a very useful feature when you want to create or automate creation of table of contents. So when you want to create automatic generation of table of contents for a document, you need to give out document item attributes. Say for example, I am going to say this is going to be TOC. Type is going to be Boolean, integer, real number, string. So it can be none. Don't give out anything. Don't give out any value, anything. Add auto add to. Here you auto add to text frame. So when you add this attribute to the text frame, the moment you click on the text frame, this menu will pop up. You can always say add it to the table of contents. So now I'm going to give OK. So that attribute will be added to my text frame. So here I would like to give you a small tip to ensure that the title of your chapter and the subtitles are given out as separate text frames. Don't give out a title and the subsequent text inside the same frame. You create a separate text frame for your title and subtitle, so that on right clicking you can add the same to the table of contents by using this attribute feature. Then table of content generation is actually you can add table of contents and then item attribute name, table of contents, destination frame that you need to set by right clicking the text frame. Right? You OK. This is as far as document setting goes. Whereas preferences, I've been already saying, preferences is for the overall settings of your Scribus. Whatever changes you make in the preferences will take effect only in all your subsequent documents and not in your current document window. If you are very keen to ensure that these things are included in the same document, I will advise you to save all the preference, close the Scribus, open again and create a new document. That is the way to go about. So now we have completed document setup. Our next session will be on preferences, which we are going to use in Scribus. Thank you for your patient listening.